Better Than Dead is the latest in the bodycam trend in first-person shooters. Games that mimic the chest-mounted cameras of military and law enforcement through clever use of fisheye lensing, camera movement, and a bevy of lighting and post-processing effects, resulting in an eerily photorealistic found footage look. Unlike most bodycam efforts that go for a tactical military approach, such as the multiplayer-focused bodycam, as well as the still unreleased Unrecord that kicked off the whole trend, Better Than Dead takes its cues from the gritty action cinema of the 1980s and 90s, in particular the films of John Woo, resulting in a high-octane and rather disturbing revenge thriller that in many ways feels like a first-person Hotline Miami. Better Than Dead just released into early access, and its publisher, Microprose, was kind enough to share the game early with me. A big thank you to them. So today I'll be lending my thoughts on the qualities of Better Than Dead, what works, and what is utterly enraging, all to help you decide if this one is worth jumping into early or best left in a cloud of smoke. Let's begin. Better Than Dead is comprised of 14 levels, taking you through the seedy underbelly of Hong Kong. Your objective in each map is simple: fight through the mobs of mobsters to either dispatch the boss in the white suit or rescue a young girl. Mechanically, the game is also straightforward. You have one weapon the whole game, a pistol with unlimited ammo and 12 shots before it has to be reloaded, with a sprinting slide dash that puts you into a brief slow-mo bullet time state to get the edge on enemies. There's an invisible luck system that affects your accuracy as well as the chances of bullets hitting you, especially if you aren't moving. And your luck lessens if you pop innocent civilians, worsening your aim and making it more likely you'll get hit. So in all, keep moving, shoot as accurately as possible, and keep the normies alive. You can only get shot a couple of times before it's game over, and getting hit once will slow your character down and skew your aim, making things tougher. And yes, this is the type of game where you will be seeing that game over screen a lot. Failing and retrying every level over and over until you get it right is a core part of the experience. Again, not unlike something like Hotline Miami. At the end of every level, you are scored and given a ranking on how fast you beat the level, the amount of enemies you dispatched, and penalized for any innocents you dropped. There is a lot more I have to say about the gameplay, but for now I'm going to save that for the end of the video and touch on some other aspects of the game first. Story is certainly a core pillar of the game, however, it is far from heavy-handed in telling it, opting to convey many of its plot points through visuals and wisps of text, leaving it up to the player to piece things together. It's straight gameplay from start to finish. However, it won't be hard for players to grasp the grim scenario they've stepped into. I have to stress, the themes of this game are very dark and not for the faint of heart. You play as a young girl who is the victim of sex slavery and trafficking by the organized crime of Hong Kong, going on a vicious revenge quest to eliminate her former captors, filming their demise much like they filmed her being exploited and broken. As the game's Steam page puts it, every fight is personal. Again, the game's themes are disturbing and its atmosphere bleak, and in that, it will not be for everyone. However, it is executed well. I felt the core narrative aspects got across clearly, and much of the visual design felt intentional and complementary to it. It's the type of experiential storytelling I love seeing in games, and this is a surprisingly good example of it. This makes for a good segue into presentation. Right at the top, I need to warn that since this is a bodycam game, there is almost constant camera shake and waggle, which is meant to be disorienting to a degree. Now, I rarely get motion sick from playing video games, but I will admit, in my initial moments, I had a light headache and my stomach lurched a bit. Over time, I got used to it, but since there's no option to decrease the camera movement, if you are the type of gamer who is sensitive to this, it might be wise to steer clear. Otherwise, the bodycam effect is implemented very well and by and large makes most of Better Than Dead look eerily real. However, while the effect does most of the heavy lifting in giving this game its photorealistic look, the devil is in the details with this one, as the seedy urban environments are well realized, with an impressive attention to detail. Cups, bottles, pieces of paper, posters on the wall, wires, garbage on the ground, lots of human clutter, dirt, and grime that makes just about every part of this game's levels look and feel believable, along with some decent particle effects during shootouts, sparks and shards of glass flying everywhere to make things feel kinetic. And something I haven't mentioned yet is all of this is coming from a solo developer, making the efforts all the more admirable. The visual design in terms of gameplay is also smart. Simple, but smart. Civilians, for example, are brightly colored, where enemies are in darker clothing, making it easy to single them out in the environment. And since there is no HUD, this is one of the rare times I'm okay with blood splatting on the screen when I'm injured. It's a logical way in this context to communicate that I'm hurt, and it's done to a degree where it doesn't get in the way, as opposed to old Call of Duty titles where it was like a ball of strawberry jelly being chucked at the screen. Sound design is also strong. There's some believable effects of bullets smacking walls and exploding glass and other things in the environment. You'll hear bullets whizzing past, communicating near misses, as well as the music ceasing when you do get shot to further signal your status. However, with all these compliments, there is a good amount of room for improvement. Where I had some issues was that some areas are lit too dark, making it overly hard to see enemies. Plus, in low-lit areas, some of the lighting quirks of Unreal 5 were on full display, taking me out of it a bit. Speaking of taking me out of it, there are some assets which, upon closer scrutiny, don't look great. Some blurry textures, and on rare occasion, missing geometry. In all fairness, these things are hard to see in the heat of the moment, but it would be nice to see them improved. I feel like the blood and gore is too cartoonish and, dare I say, video gamey. Big, bright red splotches with a lot of specular on them, to the point that they look like shiny spaghetti sauce. It did take me out of the immersion, and this is one of those games where I think it would pay off to go the extra mile and have some highly realistic blood splatter, to the point where it should bother people and make them feel uncomfortable. And why not? Everything else in this game will. Last, I experienced a lot of visual bugs in my playthrough, like enemy ragdolls tweaking out or their models getting completely stuck in geometry, not to mention occasional glitchy animations. And for a game that's trying to portray a near photorealistic world, these sorts of bugs are devastating to the immersion. Now, since this is early access and coming from a solo developer, I am going to let some of this pass, as this game is a work in progress. But these things should be addressed as much as possible by the 1.0 release. Now, while I have positive things to say about Better Than Dead's presentational aspects and concept, the truth is, when it came to the gameplay, much of it was a frustrating headache. Let's start with the shooting. With no crosshairs and the purposefully disorienting camera, gunplay is kept pretty simple. Just point in the direction you want to shoot, and from what I gathered, your shots land through some sort of auto-aim with its accuracy determined by that invisible lock system. And therein lies a problem, as your accuracy is dictated by chance, and boy does it sure feel like it. There were times I was able to pop off accurate shots like I was John Wick, and other times I was missing everything like...
Harry! You're alive! And you're a horrible shot!
I should note that you can aim down your sights, presumably to help your accuracy, but I'm not convinced this does anything because I failed to notice a difference. There were times I was aiming down my sights, missing every damn shot, but then from the same distance fired from the hip and nailed it. Not to mention, there were times where the physics of where my bullets were going didn't make a lick of sense. Like in this moment where I was shooting around cover. Look at this in slow motion. How the hell is my bullet hitting here? That's absurd. The movement mechanics add to this frustration. They're weighty, clunky, and slow, meant to convey a sense of realism, as does many aspects of this game, but in the heat of a firefight where you need to be moving quickly, the physics of them felt like an obstacle I was fighting against, like I was trying to avoid gunfire by trudging through mud. The bullet time slide dash does feel better and often is the key to surviving firefights, but it still feels muddy and unsatisfying, and the slow recovery of it puts you in more danger if you're not mindful with it. And if you do get shot, you might as well call it, because your movement becomes even slower and unresponsive. And what really raised my blood pressure is your aiming goes to hell with your hand and gun model waving around the screen, which at times can annoyingly block your view. I imagine this is to simulate your character's head slumping down in pain. Yeah, neat for the realism, I guess, but it feels like an unfair punishment, especially with these wonky physics. In fairness, you can recover, but it takes what feels like an eternity. Now look, the whole motivation for these gameplay mechanics is you are assuming the role of someone who is untrained but very angry. Dangerous not because of her skill, but because of her raw fury and determination for revenge. And the developer is trying to express that through frantic, emotionally driven gunplay. And it makes sense that her abilities would be unrefined and clunky. Those aspects do come across, and I do think it's intriguing conceptually. But at the same time, this is a game that urges you to go as fast as possible, shoot efficiently off instinct, and claims it rewards aggressive play, and grades your skill in doing so. And when so many of my deaths felt like they were from me fighting the physics and straight-up dice rolls rather than my own skill as a player, it makes for a frustrating and flat-out irritating gameplay experience that feels utterly cheap. If you forgive me comparing to Hotline Miami again, like Better Than Dead, that's a game that also rewards fast, aggressive play and requires instinctual shooting. The difference, though, is its mechanics and parameters are unchanging and not reliant on chance. The aiming is consistent, the movement is consistent, the enemies are consistent, as any arcade action experience should be. That way, when the player fails, they feel it's their fault and not the game cheating them. So in the process of trial and error, they can learn and get better. Better Than Dead misses that entirely. It's not trial and error, it's trial and hope for the best, which does not make for a fun shooter. Even when playing with the best practices, which boils down to spamming the slide dash as much as possible, there is always a chance you'll be cheaply killed by sheer chance. Hesitation kills? No, actually, it's the game's jank-ass mechanics. The core problem is that this game wants to be this somewhat realistic, highly immersive, emotional experience of overcoming through sheer will, which I respect. But at the same time, it's also trying to be a fast-paced, arcadey action title that judges your skill. And right now, those two goals are clashing in a way that completely undermines the fun of the game. There might be a way to strike the right balance, but maybe it'd be wiser if the developer picked a lane and stuck to it. If you want this to be more arcade action, then gear the mechanics more towards that and make them more consistent and fair to the player. If you want this to be more experiential, then drop the arcadey stuff and lean it more into the realism. And if you do go the arcade route, it would be good if a future update brought a mission select to replay levels, which also gives the criteria for getting the highest grade on them, as well as a restart mission function in the options menu. Right now, those things are woefully absent. I know I'm tacking those ones on, but it needed to get in here somehow. To stress, this is an early access release, and as the developer has stated, a goal for it is to gather feedback to make the game better. So my hope is that Better Than Dead will be in better shape in 6 months to a year, as that is the stated early access period. Otherwise, while I do appreciate Better Than Dead's visual style, as well as the portrayal of its grisly themes, right now I feel like it's undermined by frustrating, unfocused gameplay that looks way cooler than it feels to play. And for that, I can't recommend it, let alone an early access purchase. Wait for the 1.0 release to see if its issues get ironed out. What are your thoughts on Better Than Dead? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share. It's a huge help for the algorithm. Thank you for watching, and stay safe out there.